Hi friends, this is Chris. Welcome back to the channel. So I have a couple of questions for you. One, how much does it take to be comfortable in today's world? And two, how much does it take to be rich? And you guys know, you follow the channel, we talk a lot about the cost of things. We talk about inflation, we talk about the economy. And there was a headline that really caught my attention and I was thinking about these questions. I want to talk with you. Here's the headline. 31% of millionaires say they're part of the middle class. And this really stood out to me because when I was a kid, if someone said, hey, I'm a millionaire, or that person's a millionaire, that basically means rich and you don't have to worry about anything ever again. But in today's age, right? And obviously with inflation, the dollar isn't necessarily what it used to be anymore. But 31% of millionaires just say, hey, we're just middle class. We're just sort of getting by, not necessarily rich, not necessarily poor, just somewhere in the middle. And I'd be curious what your thoughts on this kind of data. Moreover, I was looking at this as well. We've talked about this several times on the channel. Credit card debt in the USA just keeps going up. And this signifies a couple of different things. One is people just don't have enough money, and the only way, to sustain their lifestyles is they got to put it on their card, or they just want to buy a lot of things. And you can interpret that however you want. But I want to go back to the original question of how much does it take to be comfortable and how much does it take to be rich? In fact, Bankrate did a couple of surveys on this, and they found that a lot of people said over 200,000 you need a year to be comfortable. And what's really interesting is it depends who you ask, which I'm going to show you some of the data. So here's the actual question. The actual literal question was, what annual income would you need to feel financially secure / comfortable, right? So I use the word comfortable, but secure is a good way to think of it as well. So overall, people said 233,000 is how much they need to feel comfortable / secure. And the first thing that came to my mind was I think like from the government, the average income is like 47, 50, kind of in that range. So we're basically saying, like, the average person is kind of saying, well, I need double of that. And not only that, I need to be married or living with someone who also makes double of the average. So two people at both double the average. So I think that's much, much higher than what the government is indicating is average. People are saying in order to be comfortable, right? So double the average is comfortable according to many people. Men and women, to them, women actually want more money in order to be comfortable. So 237, men say 229. The one that really stood out to me, and this is fascinating, the highest number given here was 322,000, and this was by Black Americans. Now, I can make all kinds of guesses why Black people think that they need more money than other people in order to be comfortable. I'll just put it at this: if you're a viewer of my channel and you're Black, what do you think? I think that's much better for me just to ask you what's your thoughts. Why would people in the Black community think I need 322,000 in order to survive, or not survive? I say comfortable. That's the correct word. Not survive, comfortable. Whereas say something like Hispanic Americans say I only need 196,000 to be comfortable. White Americans say 224,000 to be comfortable. And I guess Asians are not on this chart. That's okay. We're often left out of these things, but I think there is a big discrepancy there. So I wanted to bring that up. Gen Z, 193,000 say we need to be comfortable. Millennials, 224. Gen X, 273. So I'm part of Gen X. So it's funny. I guess for us Gen Xers, we need a lot more money than the millennials who can live cheap. Boomers, 240. Parents with children under 18 think you need 247 to be comfortable. Parents with children over 18 say you need 236, and parents with no children say you need 222. So in terms of the Gen X thing, because the question I asked, why Black Americans think they need more money in terms of Gen Xers, I would say, and since I am a Gen Xer, because we don't believe Social Security is going to exist anymore. So very few people in my generation think so. I mean, maybe it will exist, but just not maybe in the same iteration as what we see today. Here's another one. Americans are asked, okay, here's a question. What annual income would you need to feel rich / achieve financial freedom? So the number given, when you kind of ask everyone, put it all together, 483,000. So basically double of comfortable. So comfortable we're defining as basically two people making double of average. Now we're saying in order to be rich, it's or financial free, essentially double of comfortable. And again, it stood out. Actually, a couple of things stood out, right? The same two categories as we talked about before. So Black Americans come in the highest, saying you need 538,000 in order to feel rich, and then Gen X is saying 575. It's again, I think it has to do more with the Social Security thing. That would be my guess. Or you could also say in terms of Gen X, we're just really pessimistic about the world. If you're in my generation, we saw the dot-com bubble, we saw the '07 financial crisis, so that was a thing. And again, there's also here as well, women say you need more money to be rich than men. Oftentimes when you ask the difference between men and women, it's usually women are more concerned about the taking care of the nest, which isn't necessarily so bizarre. It's just that's part of it. So, and men just tend to think they need less money than they actually do, meaning in terms of how to build the nest. It's fun to talk about this kind of stuff because I want to see how this compares to your numbers, and also to be fair, you never know what the future is going to hold. So it's never a bad thing to have extra money around in order to secure your future and your richness and your freedom and your, I guess, comfortable lifestyle. When asked, and this is something I want to chat with you guys a little bit more about, this is when you get a raise, what would you spend more money on? This is the actual question here. If you were to receive a pay increase in the future, in which of the following categories, if any, do you think you'll increase discretionary spending? And then people could check any number of boxes. So the number one that came in at 32% put, I would essentially travel more, right? Booking a vacation / travel. I 100% agree with that. If you have extra money, expand your mind, expand your world. Travel is absolutely fantastic. Please do it. Updating my home, 30% of people said that. I won't increase my spending, 28% of people said that. So that's pretty interesting. This general concept, though, is that we call it lifestyle creep, meaning that the more you make, the more you spend. You don't necessarily have to do that. So, 28% of the people said, no, I don't necessarily have to do that. 22% of people said, I will make more charitable contributions, donations essentially. Upgrading it to a nicer car, 20% of the people said that. Dining out more often, 19% said that. I thought that was interesting. And one thing that for me personally, going out to eat is awesome. I won't lie. But it depends where you live. So at least where we live in here in Busan, there's a lot of healthy food options. The reason why I mention that is because if you live in the part of the world where going out to eat isn't really healthy, it's more like, bar food and like party kind of stuff. Maybe not so great if you go out to eat more, but if you can go out to eat and eat healthy, there's nothing like not having to do dishes. I hate doing dishes. I hate it. I mean, I've had to do it my whole life. It's like, do I want to do more dishes? No, not really. I still do it, of course, because it is still nice to cook at home. Sometimes you don't want to have to get dressed and go out but eat, but I mentioned that to you. Buying more electronics, 18% said that. Attending live events, 16% said that. And buying jewelry or clothing, 14% said that. So not that many people say that. Actually, they're just going to buy more, gold chains and diamond rings and that kind of stuff. I'm putting all of this together because I think it's just fascinating. And one of the things that I would pose to you and question, to you is that the more money that you make, how can you figure out how to become free faster, essentially? I understand that, you want to get nicer things, and there's nothing wrong with that inherently. But I also want you to think about what are your priorities. So if your priority is to be free and give your finger to the boss, that kind of stuff, and I just quit my job yesterday, and I can just tell you, it is a great feeling to where like you're not under the gun to pay for all these crazy things that you might have paid for in the past, or sort of tied yourself down to in the past, that you have the freedom to just quit. It is a wonderful freedom. The worst feeling is being forced to go to work for someone that you hate, doing things that you really dislike. It's a horrible feeling. So that would be my thing here. Is interesting. Like they're saying, if you make more money, would you increase your spending? One of the things that you could ask someone, you could rephrase the questions like, if you made more money, how much more would you invest? How much more would you save? So I just want to throw that question out there. It's not in this survey, but I do think it's something that worth mentioning. I want to put this together with another article that just came out, which I think is fascinating as well, is that we're seeing a real, what's the right word to say, sadness, because people feel like that the concept or the idea or the dream, however I want to talk about it, of owning a home is getting further and further away. A couple of reasons. One is just the inventory isn't there, right? There's just not that many affordable ones out there. Yes, there'll always be a place to live, but can you afford it? That's a whole other question, right? And that's a real thing. There's just not that many affordable single-family homes. The other issue is as well is that interest rates are really high, right? So the price of stuff is high, interest rates are high, and in fact, it's not just the USA feeling the pinch. There are many countries around the world that are essentially at really high rates, because basically what happens is when the Fed sets the rates, many banks around the world kind of follow tune. That's just how it is. So at the moment, this is a recent article. So 30-year fixed loan is 7.4%, and you say that's an average. And actually, New Zealand came in higher. So if we have any Kiwis watching this show, I guess a 1-year fix is 7.7, and then they're having some crazy issues in the UK as well with soaring housing costs, 5.6, etc. And even here in Korea, they're saying here it's 4.9, but all of these are up across the board, except for China, which is going down a bit. That's a whole other ball of wax. If you're kind of curious, this was just one prediction, but I think it's probably fairly accurate. They're saying, okay, well, there's a couple things. So one is, yes, we're at 7.4, but there's a lot of people who locked in at like in the twos, like 2.65, I guess, and that was early 2021. So if you were to refinance or bought back then, you got much, much less. Kind of the average rate maybe for the next decade, if you're looking to get in a home or something like that, may end up being about 5.5%. So this idea of, twos and threes, that might never come again, or may be a long ways away. I mean, obviously I can't predict the future like that, but I'm just giving you an idea that 5.5 may end up being kind of an average rate. Now, what's interesting is that there is some data here on people who currently have mortgages, like what's their rate, and the ones, you can see this here, the way this chart is structured, is that the ones who got in at lower rates are a much larger proportion of mortgages these days. So the highest, or how can I say, the largest amount of mortgages are around the 2.75 mark. So a few, families out there have mortgages above 8%, but that's the minority. And then right now, sort of things are slowing down. And Goldman thinks that in 2024 is when we'll really start to see how they put it. They put in the last report, Goldman Sachs economists said the impact of sustained higher mortgage rate will be the most pronounced. That's the word they use. I couldn't think of the word they were using. Most pronounced in 2024. They estimate that transactions will fall to the lowest level since the early 90s. So we'll definitely see a slowing of the housing market. And one thing that I have been reading, and I've mentioned to you guys before, is the reason why people feel kind of awful these days is because the price of things keep going up, right? Now, what's fascinating though is that many people, I don't know about your particular situation, you can actually afford to pay these higher prices, just it doesn't feel good. And I completely understand that. For us, we go to the store, and I just feel like, and this is something that I just like to eat. I like apples. I really like them a lot. But I just feel like apples are really expensive. And it's like, oh my God, yes, we can afford to pay to buy said apples, but it just seems like too much. I don't want to pay more. And when you go to the restaurants, like, even though we can afford to pay the price, whenever you see a price increase, it just doesn't feel good, right? You guys know what I mean? Moreover, there are people out there who are in the situation to where, or businesses, to where they calculate their expenses to be a certain kind of way. And with the interest rates going up, it just raised the cost of everything. Plus, you also have the raised cost of insurance and these kind of things, like no reals. I probably don't have to explain it to you. You probably already know. Auto insurance, home insurance, these kind of things are also going up. I'm putting all of these things together because I think it's fascinating. Again, when you ask people how much do you need to be comfortable, how much do you need to be rich, I think people's expectations keep going up because they kind of think that the world is kind of heading in that direction and you need more to feel secure. There's nothing wrong with that, right? There's nothing wrong with necessarily needing more to feel secure. But one thing that I just want to, emphasize with you and for you to think about is how can you adjust your lifestyle to where you may not necessarily need that much? Because for some of these people, I honestly think maybe you don't need that much. But again, it depends on the kind of lifestyle that you want to lead. For me, lifestyle creep is something that I've seen a lot of my friends, get into, but it's not something I was interested in. For example, and I always example cars. I think it's the easy example. One of the things that gets a lot of people is like they're buying a new car like every couple of years, or they're constantly on a lease, etc. When this is a reality, many of the modern cars these days, if you buy one that's reliable, you can drive these things for like a couple 100,000 miles, and you can save quite a bit of money that way. And again, they ask people like, hey, what are you going to do if you get an increase in salary? And a lot of people said, yes, I'll buy a new car, or people said they'll take bigger vacations or more vacations, etc. Now I have nothing wrong with going on vacation. I've nothing bad to say about that. But when you do these kind of things, just for example, one of the ones that we always talk about, my wife and I, when we go places, is like, do we really need to get like the nicest hotel possible when we're going to be in the hotel, not that long compared to like walking on the streets? Do you guys see what I'm saying? Like, and that's sort of the ways that you can actually still enjoy your life. You just cut back on the spending, but it's not really that much difference. And I'm just telling you guys, I've stayed in the nicest luxury hotels, and I've also stayed in like the cheap backpacker hotels. And at the end of the day, like, if I'm not just laying around on the beach living in the hotel, I'm out of my hotel enjoying the vacation, and I don't really notice that much difference again between the nicest and the backpacker hotel. If I'm just on vacation to go see tours, go see the museums and these kind of things, and I think about my life in that same kind of way, to where like, can I still enjoy life to the fullest, but figure out ways to cut back? And then by doing that, that allows me to essentially live with less, and you can enjoy life more. I know it might sound crazy, but why? Because I'm not constantly under pressure to pay for all these things I don't necessarily need. Like, for example, this is a very real thing. When you go on vacation, these kind of things, you have a choice of meals, right? Do you get the hotel food, or do you just like walk across the street and get something else that costs half as much and may actually end up being the same thing? That kind of stuff is just like taking that little bit of work. And I know I use an example of like the hotel food, and sometimes it's nice to not have to walk across the street to do that kind of thing. But these are sort of the ways that we've enjoyed our lives, to where we don't necessarily have to get the nicest thing out there. I don't have to get the iPhone Pro Max Super Deluxe thing. I just get the regular iPhone and I'm happy with it. That kind of stuff. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on these things. So like, are there things that you can sort of figure out ways to still live comfortable? I'm not talking about making your life terrible, but just size down a little bit in order to secure your freedom much, much sooner. That's sort of my point of view on these things. So please share your thoughts on any one of these things that we talked about in this video. I always enjoy chatting with you, and I'll catch you next time.